coming up this week on the Markcast. Well, here we are, familiar streets, feel like I've been down this road before, 2 competing spring football leagues in talks about merging. Feels just like CJ from Grand Theft Auto.
Here we go again.
So this time we will channel our inner Jeff Probst. Everybody drop your buffs. It's time to merge. I don't dare play a Survivor clip on here. CBS gets a little trigger happy with demonetizing YouTube channels. Big show this week. You know it's big when we bring on the Professor Andrew Murray. You know him. You love him. All the latest XFL-USFL merger talk. What teams are going to survive. When is kickoff going to be. Networks the games are going to be on. Everything up to the minute. Last details.
This is a stunning rollout of events. I am genuinely shocked that we are here at this point. I could not believe the announcement that was made on Tuesday. Well, not the announcement, but the reports that were being made about a potential announcement for a merger. I never in my wildest dreams thought that these two were actually going to merge. I'm just going to say that right now because I thought, as Evan had said before on your podcast yesterday, I just thought there was too much egotism involved.
And then still talking CFL on the podcast, headed into week 16. We have Derek Taylor, the voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, coming on to share his knowledge.
I wish I could give you a real solution for it because all week long we talked about last year's game at this time of the year against Hamilton. It was, oh, hey, you guys had just won a big game and then you went to Hamilton and got whacked. What was the deal with that? And they said, it wasn't that complacency. It wasn't that we took them easy. It wasn't that we were looking ahead to the bye week. So they were aware of all these things. And then the exact same game happens, a year minus a day later, and they go into Hamilton with the bye week looming, coming off a big win, and they get whacked.
And then if you're a fan of the XFL or the CFL, you'll know this gentleman, Cam Phillips of your 2022 Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, stopping by the show, catching up with Cam.
Even at the beginning, you can't win 15 games at once. You can't go win a championship the first week, so it's a process. So I think, the coaching staff and even the players, which we've bought in, and that's really the culture now. We come to work, we are who we are, but when it's time to work, it's time to work.
Should be a good one. Like and subscribe. Hey guys, welcome to the Markcast. Reed here. Busy week. Certainly wasn't expecting this. Right now, mid-September, driving into work. I had a week-long gig here filming at a convention. Get a text from a friend of the show, listener Seth. The XFL and the USFL are merging. Not kidding. Here we are. Exciting times. We've been down this road before. If you're new to the podcast, we went through all of this with the CFL and XFL talks back 2 years ago. So been down this road, not a spring chicken here, if you want to call it that, but we'll get you covered here. This is kind of the exciting time. Football's fun. It's fun talking, the CFL week 16 and all of that. Of course, love getting the expertise of all the guests, but this is our bread and butter. I built this dang podcast talking merger talk. So I will be darned if we won't continue here, giving you guys the best information, most up to date we can, coming off our big, really well attended, really well viewed live stream we had Evan and Anthony, and then of course our XFL insider Mike Mitchell on that. Went almost 2 hours on Wednesday night. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, Mike dropping lots of details that Andy and I will react to today in terms of the combination of the teams, who he is hearing from the XFL is going to survive the cuts, who he hears from the USFL, the networks the games are going to be on, time of year, everything's going to be played, all of that stuff. We're going to bring on Andy today to kind of react to all of that, talk through, the 2 hour, I love the live stream episode because we get to do kind of all the listener interaction and all of that stuff. But then I think it's helpful to kind of bring Andy in. Okay, let's contextualize all of this. Let's boil it down, kind of talk through everything a little bit more in depth. So I think that'll be good. Like I said, if you haven't seen the live stream, make sure you check that out. But we will obviously recap all of the big news in the podcast today. Really appreciate Derek Taylor coming on, voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Was going to hop on last week when Jeff and I had our scheduling kerfuffle, but getting Derek on the bye week. And then, of course, Cam Phillips, really appreciate him and everyone at the Argonauts for setting that up. Big weekend for them hosting the Hamilton Ticats there. having a tremendous season. Cam is, and then of course the team. So really appreciate them taking the time. That'll do it for me today. Big show. Have no idea how long Andy and I will go, but I'm sure that will be a fruitful conversation. Like I said, make sure, please thumbs up the video. Got a lot of good feedback on our live stream, but thumbs up, tell us YouTube, the algorithm that you guys are liking the video, and then, subscribe, turn on notifications if you haven't. Going to be a busy time here, with all this news and when everything's going to break. And so we'll be posting shorts and episodes and live streams and all of that stuff. So make sure you are please subscribed so you don't miss any of that. I will see you guys at the end. Thanks. Well, here we are back again. We have the Professor Andrew Murray. I went and got a little happy hour with the wife. She had back to school night, and it's been a really stressful week with all of this here before. So we'll see. Recorded everything else, had all my Derek Taylor and Cam Phillips interviews here. We can be a little more casual with Andy. Andy Murray, the Professor, back. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, Reed. Thank you for having me on. I was so tempted to jump on your live stream yesterday, but I had other things going on. And honestly, I mean, it would have been like walking into a fighter ring because I felt like there was a lot of emotion going on at the same time from a lot of different angles. And I really wish I could have jumped in on it. But actually, I'm more happy now because I have kind of ruminated. I've thought a lot about what's going on, and I can really have a much more clear approach to what I'm going to say today. So I'm excited to be on, but boy, I did not expect to be on this week. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, let me put it this way. When we bring on Andrew Murray is kind of like the, break glass. We need the Professor. We need him on. We have a lot of new subscribers. We've added 40, 50 new subscribers here over the last couple of days. I think we hit 3,000 views over the last 28, however YouTube tracks it. It's like more than a day, but appreciate everyone joining. Andy has been we've been doing this a long time, and I just welcome to the show. I did my intro and everything, but we've been doing this, Andy and I, we've gone all the way back through and the trademark stuff and the USFL and the XFL and coming back and we've gone through everything. I appreciate everyone joining us. This is week 163 of the podcast. Never missed a week. Maybe we're not the longest running, but we've certainly been doing this as consistently. We'll get into all the news. I think this is good because we did the live stream. If you guys haven't seen the live stream, check that out. 2 hours, Mike and, Anthony Miller and Evan on there. That's great. Hopefully a little more concise today and just more focused because that was obviously craziness. Before we get into everything, I have my National Spring Football League hat on, and I wore this specifically today. I just tweeted about this, and this is my only little grandstand here. We'll get into all this stuff. I've had messages sent to me all day, comments on the YouTube. Because Mike and I think it came up last night in the YouTube video, they're getting rid of, because the rumor is they're going to get rid of the XFL or the USFL branding, combined whenever this mega super league comes together. And Mike and I had joked, it's the National Spring Football League because, Mike and I know it's a joke because when the USFL was originally acquiring, this is how long we've been doing this. When they were originally acquiring all of the trademarks for all the new teams that they were going to roll out, they had a NSFL, a National Spring Football League LLC that kind of acted as a catalyst. They were kind of able to acquire all the trademarks, transfer it because Brian Woods owned some of them. He was with the Spring League. It was just really mess. And so they used this holding company. And that's where the name came from, the National Spring Football League. When they, obviously transferred everything to the USFL, that went away. I registered the trademark for the clothing brand because I thought it would be so funny because people were freaking out oh my God, it's not going to be the USFL. What's it going to be? I went, registered it. Since then, they emailed me and they're like, trademark office, what are your intentions with all of this? When are you setting up the Spring Football League, all this stuff? Realized that there was this maybe further of a joke than I wanted to go. So I let it go abandoned. Gotten a lot of things sent to me today. Hey, Fox Sports owns the National Spring Football League trademark. No, they haven't. Never have. I mean, they might. They can. I mean, they certainly can now. I have it abandoned. You go search the trademark office, NSFL or National Spring Football League. The only thing that will come up is my abandoned dead trademark for the clothing and whatever. So I just want to get that out there because I just emailed a FOS writer. He had an article out today. Oh, Fox Sports. We've been doing this a long time. Welcome to whatever. I know there's been a lot of blurring stories right now. So I don't know. Hopefully that wasn't too long of a ramble, if that makes sense, Andy.
I mean, you were ahead of the game far before anyone else
Who
was.
knew?
Maybe
Who
before
knew?
we even realized it. You're a trailblazer in that way. But I just have to say, this is a stunning rollout of events. I am genuinely shocked that we are here at this point. I could not believe the announcement that was made on Tuesday. Well, not the announcement, but the reports that were being made about a potential announcement for a merger. I never in my wildest dreams thought that these two were actually going to merge. I'm just going to say that right now because I thought, as Evan had said before on your podcast yesterday, I just thought there was too much egotism involved. I really thought that philosophically, these two entities would never be able to come to the table and be able to agree on anything. And look, we still haven't really even gotten maybe even past other preliminary discussions. I mean, there's so many logistical things that have to be ironed out. But as far as we can hear from and see, it seems like this is going to happen. And I did not have it on my bingo card. In fact, I'm not kidding you. I was in the midst of writing an article about why it specifically was not going to happen and that either league was going to be content with basically both of them falling away. Like one of them was going to die and whoever was the last one standing was going to survive and be the king of all spring leagues and grandstand and say, look, we made it. We did it. We are the champions. We've solved spring league football forever. And now here we are with both of them basically coming to the table and realizing potentially that they have to merge if they're going to survive. And I did not think that was an ultimatum that was possible. I really did not. So I'm just as shocked as anyone.
Yeah, so just to set the record, or to set the table here, and like I said, Mike was on last night. A lot of credit to him and the work that he's done. I know there's been a lot of, I guess Mike Mitchell. Hey, I don't know. It was just really weird. Like Mike came on last night. I thought it was a really good stream. We had I think record viewership we've ever had. Concurrent, it's done great views today. It felt really good. And there's been a lot of well, Mike doesn't know what he's talking about, or this is wrong. I posted this in the group chat last night. I stand by everything that we report on this show. I stand by everything that Mike reports. I know Mike says things to us in private that may or may not, and then if Mike puts it out there, it's something that he feels good enough to source. And I welcome that. If there was anything that has been fictitious that we've ever reported, I worked in news for a long time before getting into this. I don't want to get into this, he said, she said, whatever, but I genuinely stand by the work that Mike does, the connections that he has. We rely on him a lot. I know Mark relies on Mike a lot. We all do. So to me, there's just been a lot of credibility questioning of that. So I don't know where that comes from, but Mike, kind of the table we have, we're looking at a combining of the teams, looking at potentially some from the XFL, some from the USFL, getting rid of the Roughnecks, getting rid of the Vipers, Houston, taking over there, an April kickoff, and then the mixture of games between ABC, ESPN, and Fox. Anything else, I guess, jarring that stands out to you from that, and we can kind of go through those piece by piece.
I mean, the teams that Mike announced yesterday really surprised me. I can't believe that the Roughnecks would be on the chopping block before the Gamblers. Roughnecks have played in the market twice in two different iterations of the league and have an established fan base. And look, you can tell me all you want about the Gamblers franchise. I'm sure they have fans. I'm not talking about the fans dating back to 1985. I'm talking about fans now. And look, if people want to come out of the woodwork and support them, great. But this is not the entity that I thought was going to be chosen. This is not the IP I thought was going to survive in this negotiation. If that indeed ends up being the case, that would be absolutely wild to me. Because, listen, logistically, which coaching staff is going to end up staying if you're going to talk about chopping off one of the Houston teams? It's Curtis Johnson versus Wade Phillips and his staff. And I don't know which one is going to survive there. As far as the other teams, I was surprised to hear Birmingham. I mean, that's your champion. That's the two-time defending USFL champion that you put a hub in for all of the teams in year one, and you put in year two with them and the New Orleans Breakers. I don't understand that one.
Well, you got to keep it. I mean, you can't get rid of that. I mean, if you're merging, right, you can't get rid of the Stallions.
You would think after how much capital and how much.
So they're in. I mean, they're in, right? So it's Stallions,
Memphis,
the Ohio. I got the tweet up here. from the USFL, Stallions, the Memphis teams, and presumably the Breakers, an Ohio-based team, because that's a mess there, because you have the Maulers and you have the Generals there. You have nothing there in Ohio, and then the Gamblers taking over on that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I guess we would be waiting on the other 10 teams total. So then it would be the 6 from the XFL. So if I'm doing my math there right, yeah, I had a drink.
For me, I mean, the teams that I thought would potentially be on the chopping block were, from the USFL side, obviously the teams that were not in home stadiums. That would be Houston, that'd be New Orleans, that'd be Philadelphia, that would be the New Jersey Generals. And quite frankly, that also include the Canton team, because there is no Canton team. The Maulers are included in that. But if they want to convert one of those teams into an Ohio property, then fine. Then you convert that into one of those teams. And then basically that leaves 4 out. And then on the XFL side, I thought the only one that was really in danger, obviously, is the Vegas Vipers. They were obviously in their own tumultuous relationship with their venue and basically whether or not they were even going to exist next month. Meanwhile, their team account just keeps tweeting away like nothing's going on. And I didn't think they were going to survive either way, but I thought they were going to be relocated. I know people have thrown out the Orlando Guardians because of the attendance issue. I'm glad that you mentioned Corey last night, the guy who does all of the great social media for them. I'm glad that you mentioned him. He was very thankful about that on Twitter as well. And look, they put in their effort. And also that's Danny's. I thought that was Danny's team too. I mean, I know maybe Danny Garcia is willing to make that concession, but to chop it down to 10 teams, that's just such a loss of not only fans, but just capital in terms of what you have. To go from 16 down to 10 in a basically merger league, I mean, that just feels like a huge net loss. I don't really even know if it feels like a merger anymore. It just feels like one league bought 2 teams and then kicked everyone else out. Like that.
Well, we've gotten a lot of negative feedback. I mean, that's the thing is, there's always casualty when it comes to, any sort of merger and acquisition. You're between talent, between staff. It's hard. And I understand people's frustrations. Sorry to cut you off.
No, but that's the thing. Look, people can be frustrated. I understand. To me, it's baffling too. I don't understand it. But I'm not directing any of that towards Mike or anyone on the stream, because basically Mike was just doing his job and he was reporting what he was hearing. If anybody wants to get upset with Mike, you come at him, you come at the entire group. Like, I'm just going to say that right now. I will defend Mike Mitchell to the end. Like, he is an incredible man and has done a great, just fantastic work, more than anyone will ever do in this space or ever has done in this space. I will defend him to the end. I don't care. And I don't know if that comes from some echo chamber somewhere in some cacophonous part of the internet. I don't care. Mike has done his job. And so any frustration needs to be directed here, it needs to be directed at whoever's making the decisions. Okay, look, this needs to be thought out logistically correctly. I know the big wigs, the top ends of both leagues are discussing this, and apparently a lot of other people are in the dark. They better know what they're doing, because you do not want to alienate people and you do not want to pull out the wrong pin, because if you do, this could go really badly. I'm just going to say that right now. You have to be careful with what steps you make. If you're going to completely rebrand both leagues and has to have one entity, you better be damn sure it's going to work, which again is almost wild to me that could even be a possibility, because both of these brands by themselves were so strong and were so renowned and in the public space. You're basically starting from ground zero again. You might as well just start a whole new league, period. Like, why even combine the teams? That's the thing that I don't get. Why it just feels like so fly-by-night methodology, because nobody really seems to be going about this way of maybe planning out, I don't know, 5 or 10 years in the future. And I know the USFL and the XFL talked about having their plans, but they basically abandoned them after year 1 and 2 and just are casting them aside for this measure, which I'm just going to say right now just feels like desperation, because it feels like it's desperate based on how it's coming together, how the logistics are working out. I mean, again, all these brands, all these IPs, what do you do with all the, the merchandise? Are you going to sell it off all of a sudden? What are you going to do in terms of having all the
TV deals,
interlocking the TV deals, the Disney deal that Mike brought up, they're interlocked with Disney until 2027. What's Disney's, thoughts about this and their relationship with ESPN? I mean, And then, of course, the thing that gets me in this whole thing, and not to go on too long, but the thing that really got my craw about this is the players and the coaches and the people that whose jobs are at stake suddenly because of this. And look, this is a capitalistic venture. This country is built on capitalistic ventures, and part of that includes takeovers and mergers. That happens with companies. I've been part of a company that had a takeover. Things changed. I didn't like it. I left. People followed me afterwards. I've been reading about different kinds of mergers that have happened in the past. Obviously, the most infamous one I can think of is like Sears and Kmart. I know it's not a football league, but like that obviously blew up in both of their faces when that happened. I mean, you have to be really careful with when you decide to pull the trigger on this kind of decision. You're going to upset a lot of people, and you have to be careful with where you go forward. But you need to have a plan. And I hope that they have a clear plan of what they're going to do and how they're going to accomplish it, and not just say, let's throw everything together and see if it works, because that's not going to work. It's not going to last. And we're going to be back to square one again.
It's interesting. And so just kind of to, I guess, add further context, and Mike's been reporting this, and word is football ops on both the USFL and XFL side. And if you know the history and the crossover, I'm not going to like throw people under the bus here, but if you know the history and the crossover of the USFL and the XFL and who's been in both, like to me, I can connect the dots very much of like who from the XFL was talking to who of the USFL. And I actually messaged No Soul, this person No Soul, that I didn't want to dig too deep, like throw anyone under the bus, but apparently, year one concludes. Football ops to both sides, they talk and they go, okay, well, let's ship this upstairs and see. And Mike has said in our chat, the room in which kind of the sphere of who in the XFL and the USFL who actually know what's going on is very, very slim. We're talking Russ Brandon, Danny, Dwayne, Moose, they're like, who else would be on that? Who else would be on the, because like Ed Hartman's got, whoever is on like Eric Shanks or whatever on the USFL side. And so, because that's my question to you is, and I'm trying to figure out timeline here, because I had a conversation today with someone who was talking with an executive at Fox, and they're saying, yes, the Axial report said the merger is going to be complete here ahead of the 2024 seasons, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the 2024 season is going to be a combined like US XFL, Spring League, whatever amalgamation. Like they potentially could merge, continue to act as two separate entities, very much like, the AFL, whatever, back in the day, run concurrently. Maybe you have a little bit of crossover play and then move towards that down the line, which I would like. Because as you noted, like Vipers and Battlehawks, like we're all kind of tweeting on. And what I don't know, truthfully, is this like blissful ignorance? Like, hey, we're just going about our business. This is what we're doing. Do they not know? Is this a directive? Does it not matter? Because, yeah, we are still doing the showcase next month. We are still doing the draft. XFL is going to operate on its own. USFL has its timeline. And then we're going to, we can be merged, but it's kind of a slow zipper effect versus I think a lot of people right now, and especially on the stream last night, is like, no, this is all happening before April, which in my sense is not maybe necessarily the case, as I knock my microphone over.
I mean, it's a panic button if that's the case. But
yeah, which to me, I think it's a little more thought out, hopefully.
To that, I'll say, I mean, we only know what we know. We don't know everything. And I've learned just from my reading and going through a lot of people in comments, a lot of people don't know anything about the situation. And a lot of people are pretending to know that they know a lot of things. Look, a lot of us are in the dark here, okay? This is a transitioning phase right now for a lot of us. And look, these leagues, I don't know logistically, again, how they would be able to accomplish this. I mean, we're getting to the end of September here. We're coming up. 2024 is not that far away. And I don't know how in the world you would be able to conduct this merger and be able to get everyone on the same page that quickly and then drop. If it means dropping teams, I would not advise that. If it's going to be down the road, if it's going to be a year after 2024, and they somehow logistically are able to keep as many teams as possible and are able to sort of brief people on what could potentially happen down the road, that's a little bit more amicable, and that I understand a little bit more. Again, I don't want teams to drop, but obviously it seems to be a fantasy land proposition that all the teams would stay. And I think that's what maybe is such a disconnect here is basically anytime that the idea of a merger was brought up amongst anyone in our group or people in the, the fan bases or anybody, peripheral, people on the outside, maybe casuals, everybody talked about it like, oh yeah, well, you just get all 16 teams in there and howdy doody, play same rules, and that's it. And clearly there seems to be a disconnect between what people want and what the leagues want, or at least they think they can use in order to be viable and be able to survive. So to me, I mean, it just would seem so hasty if they just kind of dropped teams and they were just rushing into this next year, if indeed that was the case. Because, I mean, look, the XFL was talking to the CFL for 4 months between March and July of 2021. And in between that time, they realized we're not going to be ready for 2022. Let's, cut our losses and move back and get ready for that season, which in hindsight was a good move.
And some would argue they still weren't ready for 2020. I mean, you can
in some ways they still weren't. But I think that was ego more than it was preparation. Like I know Cashman Field was a disaster, but that's because they really thought it was going to work and it didn't. I think they tried their damnedest. They gave themselves enough time, and whatever they tried, it didn't work. So that didn't come to fruition. As far as this goes, though, I mean, this would be even hastier. I mean, this is even closer to that timeline. Even if it's like, I know it's pushing back, that would be pushing back to April, so it would still be 2+ months. But even then, it still just feels very rapid. And again, it's so much bigger in terms of not only just starting an 18 league, but to just get everyone on the same page. I question whether or not they seem to know what the timeline is here. And this is just so fluid. And I think that's the thing about it. It's very fluid. And I don't know when we're going to get that official announcement. I mean, we may not get it for months. Yeah. That's the thing. We're getting all this reporting, but clearly it may not even transpire in this month or next month or the month after, or who knows when.
I think, like I said, the more I thought about this and ruminated, because, obviously, and I believe Mike when he says, like, this is very close to finalization, whatever this is. And, the Axios report is obviously saying ahead of the 2024. It leads me very much more like we're gonna shift XFL back. We're both kicking off in April. We're gonna try to maybe align our programming schedule so it's more complementary. Because what I think has happened going into this stuff is we talked about this last night. This is a very niche market we're in, and even niche, more niche than I maybe imagined, kind of getting into all of this world, and who cares to listen to about it. But, when you're trying to segment that viewership, especially, dealing with football fatigue, dealing with, the overlapping, we got March Madness, like all these things. I think they realize, like, okay, this whole like real football, Hollywood, whatever versus the XFL. And like, we know we're competing with the USFL, but we're not going to talk like, they're kind of waging the Cold War in different ways back and forth. Like, to me, this feels way more amicable of like, at a minimum, how can we not hurt each other? And then how can we then move forward with working together in the future? I think it's kind of a multi-step process here. But like, number one, let's not be firing bullets at each other. And then step number two, like, let's figure out, because if you are basing a large identity of your league around supporting players, getting players to the NFL, like if Dwayne and Danny all the time, and I believe that, I've talked with players and, hey, Danny was there. We feel this connection with ownership, and we feel like they want to be a part of that. You can't do that and then also operate the business in a way that like knowingly is self-sabotaging. And so to me, that's where I'm kind of reading into it of like, let's not turn the guns at each other. Let's let's be firing together here and kind of try to build a platform that these players can thrive off of.
And that's fine. But again, just be careful about which platforms you use and if you're going to take things away. Again, I think that's the other thing. It's hard to take away when you give something to people, especially in this country, people do not expect to give it back. That's like, no, it's not just, it doesn't just become your property. It becomes everyone's property. And basically, if you allow that to happen, then it becomes a problem for many people. And so for me, look, the timeline for the calendar, I've never been a fan of the April to July timeline, just personally. It's getting towards summer. I just think about the players and having to play on turf in Midwest and the South when it's hot and it's humid. I just do not prefer that for them. And quite frankly, it's not a very enviable destination for me as a West Coast person to go into that kind of territory. Now, if you're going to have West Coast teams, great, then I can just stick around with those. But as far as that's why for me, for the USFL, it was just harder to convince myself to go travel to a game, among other things. But that was really a big thing for me, and I think it's a big thing for the players. And as far as the calendar thing goes, though, it's interesting to me because there was one of the biggest reasons the XFL thought their calendar was better lined up is that it would allow players to get into mini camps and be able to train and get ready for the NFL and be able to have better opportunities ahead of all the USFL players. Well, as we have seen, while a lot of players did get signed, not a lot of players made the 53-man roster.
2-1, man. I mean, and that,
exactly.
And people want to call me home or whatever. I mean, USFL got more players on the rosters, at least right now, and everything's shifting, whatever. Like, that did not play. You're saying it didn't play as big a part as we thought it would.
It didn't, ultimately. I mean, now I know it's their first year, but like that was the whole idea was, okay, well, they have more preparation, they have more time. And it was just a wash, really. I mean, both of them had pretty much equal amount of players. I think it does stay, to me at least, that both of them have talented players and they both have players that are worth sticking around. But as far as the calendar goes, I mean, it clearly didn't seem to make much of a difference, which maybe that's a concession that the XFL brass is willing to make now, just saying, okay, well, we didn't prove that point, I guess, then we're okay with moving along with the April to July calendar. So maybe it ultimately didn't matter in that regard. So I just, again, if you're going to be playing at the same time next year, fine. Just, I hope that if both leagues are allowed to exist and coexist with one another, that they're able to have all of the teams at least for next year. And I would hope in some way, shape, or form going forward. But again, that's not my call logistically. But I hesitate and I worry and I get nervous about losing, not only just losing IPs, but just losing fans and losing people who are saying, really, you just gave this to us and now you're taking it away again. And I think it's hard to just dangle the promise of, the team will come back eventually. I think that's a hard stance to take. I'm just going to say that right now. I think that's a really hard thing to promise.
If nothing else, I do, the April is hard, to me. I would kick it off, and I'm not the biggest college fan, with the basketball. I know I went to Gonzaga. That's terrible to say, but the second March Madness is done, I would kick this league off, right? Because I would want to get out as close to summer. I think going into July is too late. I think end of June and kids are gone and you're going on vacation, all that stuff. But I will say, and this does not matter in the long term, but at least next year, I think The Rock is very much rumored to be headlining WrestleMania 40 against Roman Reigns, which would be early April. And that really would be, if you wanted to, whatever you call this, if it's the double league or have a new name by this point or whatever, like that's a great runway of like, hey, he's going to be on TV every week. It's going to be, WrestleMania 40. It's huge. Like that does play into at least that part of it. But, otherwise I've never liked the April. Originally I said like, oh, I think this is the best. And then once we kind of lived through it with the USFL, I very much firmly, February might be too early to come back right after the Super Bowl. I think April's too late to start.
I'm glad you brought up The Rock, because that's the other thing in this factoring in this whole thing is the whole buildup of the XFL is that the casual person, no disrespect to Danny Garcia, I understand what she does and I know what her job is and I understand what she does and what she represents. People know who The Rock is, they know his brand, his identity and everything. If you're talking to the person on the street, you're like, and you tell them like, oh, The Rock has a football league. They're like, The Rock has a football league? That has cachet. If you're going to merge these two entities, are you going to have The Rock just saying, basically it's his league of the NWSL, whatever it's going to be called, and the National Spring Football League, sorry, the NSFWL. It's like, if you're going to have that, then are they going to be okay with the fact that people are just going to probably automatically assume, oh, it's his league? He owns all these teams and he has all these things with them. Like, are you okay with that branding and that messaging? You have to be careful about that, because I don't know. How does he readjust this? How does he juxtapose this now? Because, and I know he's talked about Danny and he's shared all of the things with him and all that, but can Fox share that? Are they okay with that? I know they obviously have a big stake in WWE. That's fine. But are they willing to kind of play along with that gimmick? Because that's part of it, right? That's part of the notoriety. That's part of the show. And I just wonder how, again, that's why philosophically I thought these two would never be able to get on the same page, because I thought they were just so disparate in how they ran their, not only ran their leagues, but just in terms of like the fan bases. Everybody just felt so different in terms of how they approached football, and they approached the product, and they approached the idea. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see these two ideas potentially melding.
The other thing, in talking about kind of playing nice together, we talk about that as well. And curious about this, because I was having a conversation today. Just the very idea that ESPN, ESPN, ABC, Fox, and then whatever NBC is involved in this, where they're at least in through the next year. I think NBC has got a 3-year deal. They're paying to air, right? USFL owned by Fox, NBC paying for part of that to air. It's just weird to think that they would play nice on that. I mean, a very weird, surreal kind of moment of that, even to add on to why we never thought that this was going to happen, right? Egos and business plans and the way they operate. And Danny always wanted to own the thing. And Fox, okay, how can we get cheap programming? And especially now, like, we're losing WWE next year. We're going to need even more stuff. Just even this, ESPN and Fox kind of playing well. Like, you don't see that often, right? And maybe Fox makes the concession because they own it, and you can pay out to license whatever. The XFL can pay for some of that airtime or whatever. Like, I don't know how you negotiate that, because in this day and age, that to me feels very odd to have two competing networks kind of sharing similar properties like that.
It does. Again, the synergy of it is very strange, and I don't know if that is going to come together cohesively. I am surprised that Disney or ESPN or whoever is involved in this decision making as well was presumably okay with the melding of those things. And again, you've had bullets flying from both sides as far as who does what and what does better and all that. Here's one thing I think that does need to change, as far as if they're going to be able to run this thing, if we're going to have this merged property, as far as visuals go, you need to be able to get out of the hub concept. Look, you can't have both of these sides doing two different things if they're going to merge together in ideals. You can't have like one not playing in hubs and the other one doing that. Now, I guess they're going to do it still next season. The USFL is still going to have the 4 hubs, because I haven't heard anything about venues being selected for any of the teams that don't have it. Are they going to be able to continue that? I don't know. We'll see. Again, as far as like, I think it, at this time last year, I mean, we didn't even hear about the Memphis Showboats coming along, if I'm not mistaken. There was like no word on it yet. I have to double check the date, but it seemed to me like they were still in the process of just moving the IP from the Bandits, and so could they do that again? Like, could the USFL just decide like, oh, we're going to drop this team and we're going to go pick another one, because they have all those brands and they're just going to throw them in one of the hubs again. It's much different than the XFL, who put all the teams in the markets and had to make a very tough, conscious decision that has been reported about them potentially taking Vegas out. That requires a lot of movement. So again, if you're going to have these two teams operating in tandem, I don't think you can have them showing those philosophical differences. I mean, the fans might want that, but I don't think they really can afford to do that, because one of the things that I think we talked about last season is, does the average person know what the difference is between the USFL and XFL game? I don't think they do. Like they're not there sitting there and being like, oh, they do this point conversion in this league and they run this, and the kickoff is like that. No one knows that. You have to.
I'm sorry, people are talking people were talking like, oh, like what rule book are they going to use? Like, say for the kickoff, I don't think anybody could tell you the difference between the USFL and the XFL.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, was it last week with the with the Vikings game where what's his face, Justin Jefferson, like when he fumbled the ball into the end zone, and I tweeted out like, hey, in the USFL this isn't an issue, and whoever texted me like, the XFL does that same rule. I'm like, see, like, I say for the kickoff, I don't think the rules is a place to handle that.
I mean, like, the rules are the rules, and they're going to have to be consistent in some way, shape, or form. But again, are you going to have these entities just become like conferences? And can you convince people that they can be conferences? I mean, look, the AFL and the NFL was a very different time, obviously, in terms of merging. First of all, you didn't really lose teams. You ended up gaining teams, if anything, out of it. But also, you know, the only thing that really changed naming wise was the AFL became the AFC, and then you had the NFL brand being the overall arcing piece of it, and then you had the AFC and the NFC conferences. But it wasn't that much of a change. So here it's like, if you're going to have a new name, are you going to change one of them to like the XFC or like the USFC or something like that, like the United States Football Conference and the Extreme Football Conference, whatever that X stands for? I'm still trying to figure out what the X stands for. Sorry, Danny, and sorry, Dwayne Johnson. I'm still trying to piece that one together. It stands
for the intersection of the dreams and opportunities.
Yeah. By the way, when they said that, did they say that in terms of two leagues coming together? Is that what that was? It was two
I
leagues
like
merging
that.
together.
I like that.
Yeah. Here's this side. Here's this side. Is that? And maybe it was foreshadowing, Reed. Maybe we were really just being dumb the entire time. It was just massive foreshadowing to the two sides coming together at the intersection of the X. You know, awesome. I mean, it's just mad. Look, that's the thing. It's all just madness right now, and I'm trying to. Every hour I'm thinking about, what about this? What about this thing? And what about what happens to this? My head's still spinning. It's been 2 days, and it's still been spinning, and it hasn't stopped spinning.
So I want to make sure we talk. I don't want to go forever on this. I want to make sure we talk through everything. Teams shifting. I don't think Vipers is the biggest. No offense to the 6,000 Cashman Field, fan. I don't know if that's the biggest loss, like I said, but I do want respect to be given to that fan base, though, because it is really easy to write that, to write that off. Like, okay, this, we're moving. Like, these are people that spent money, bought merch, kind of bought the XFL, the $80 jerseys or whatever they were, had them shipped and all that stuff. To not write that up. Roughnecks is a big. I know Mike Mitchell incredulous about, and Evan, and not just Mike. We were all kind of incredulous about the Gamblers on that. Any other notes on that about the Gamblers taking over the Roughnecks on that? Because I do think that to me, Roughnecks are. Say for, St. Louis, you talk defenders like Roughnecks and the PJ Walker and the undefeated of it all, like of any legacy. And this is like so long ago. We're talking now XFL 2020, but to me, that has one of the stronger ones that you would kind of want to keep in the regard.
Again, it's a strong brand. It's a strong IP. And again, you have Wade Phillips as the head coach, a Houston legend, basically, parking his services for that team, and they've been able to have an established identity, and they've won a lot. I mean, that's a big part of it too. They're a winner. I mean, in the regular season, you're talking about a combined record of between both seasons of 12-3. And now I know they bowed out in the playoffs early, but they've had success, and they've had players who have moved on and done things in the NFL. I just think it's hard for me to be convinced that they are the ones that are going to go by the wayside. And I wonder, is it just because of the venue change? If there is no change in the venue for moving out of
Roughnecks they're
moving the Rice Stadium. If that doesn't happen, does this become part of the conversation? I wonder, because like at that point, maybe it's just the venue insecurity that is part of this whole transition for them, and saying, well, they're not established at Rice, so the Gamblers could be. I just wonder, because if they weren't moving out of that stadium already, if they weren't moving out of the University of Houston, maybe this wasn't a conversation. I have to wonder if like that part of it maybe caused concern from both sides, is saying, well, maybe there's not really much of a difference here. But again, which team has been there? Which team has already been there? Which team already has a fan base? And again,
I'm gonna say something that's gonna be super homery here, and that's fine. If you're looking at this, right, besides Birmingham, besides Detroit, right, besides Memphis, if you're the XFL, you're like, what are we selling the breakers at, right? What are we selling the gambler? Like, maybe you just made that concession and you go, yeah, you can take that. It's all, it's negotiating, right? You're like, okay, like, we're trading back, it's like Monopoly. Like, hey, I'll give you a Park Place in St. James. Like, okay, take it. Take Houston. Like, I just think maybe it's that simple, right? Maybe it's that simple. Like, well, we can't have 7 teams and three USFL teams. Like, we got to have it be a little bit more. I mean, I think that could be it. And I don't want to be the homer, but like, you look at some of the established fan bases, Houston is more established than a lot of the USFL ones.
But that's the thing. You can't treat it like Monopoly pieces. Not when.
I know.
But I'm just going to say this, and it's probably going to make a lot of people upset. I think the USFL has treated a lot of their IPs like Monopoly pieces. They've just said, "Well, we'll trade this IP for this one. We'll move around, and we'll just go to this city and wherever we can play." Look, and that's their strategy. Okay, that's what they've said. The XFL is not doing things that way, and I think that's why it would be alienating to just go ahead and put the gamblers in place of the Roughnecks. I mean, it's like just. This isn't the girl I went to the ball with. Like, who is this? You swapped my date. Like, that's how it feels trying to get somebody else in there. I don't think this is. They have to be really careful about how they go about this again. Now, I know there's like the untouchable brands, right? Like the Battlehawks, do not touch them at all. DC, do not touch them. You can't. They're God's gift to earth in spring football leagues. Like you can't do that. But all these other IPs, you got to stop treating them like they're puzzle pieces. I mean, it's alienating. Again, it's not only alienating, it's disrespectful to people who put their time, money, and effort into these teams and been able to put their energy into it. And I'm just saying, from my perspective with the USFL teams, they haven't been in a home market. And I understand there's fans, there's people online, but like reasonably speaking, how much has really been put into them as teams, like, in terms of capital gains. And that's what I'm talking about here, is capital gains as far as what has actually made any sort of momentum forward and getting people involved in the market. So I just, that is, and that's part of the game. If this is a capitalistic venture, wouldn't you go with somebody that's already familiar? You go with a brand that's familiar. You go with a team that people already recognize. Again, that's why it just doesn't make sense to me.
Anything else you want to make sure we hit on? The team thing, we talked the broadcast, we talked the timeline, conferences. I don't know. I was surprised today because, we didn't know what Mike was going to say last night coming on. And, obviously, and he was recording with Mark as well. And I'm glad that we could kind of get a little leg up on that. But like, I didn't, expecting the team slim down, expecting, losing staff and kind of things like that. I wasn't expecting, and I don't think a lot of people were like, it's been a little bit of a negative reaction today. And even some of the kids that I know, that like, when I post on Facebook and like, okay, they're liking everything and like, there's a lot of like angry, like they're, angry. And I know it's not to me, like I know it's to kind of the news, because I just, I know these people are very passionate about that. And I was talking with listener Seth today on the phone about like just how passionate kind of the spring football fan base is. Were you surprised? Like, this was not wildly accepted. Well, I think by anybody, USFL or XFL fans.
I mean, it's something that I, again, did not see coming at all as a curveball. But again, maybe it's just speculation. But if that's stuff that Mike is hearing, clearly it's being part of the discussion, And look, here's the thing that people need to understand is when Mike is hearing things, it means it's part of a legitimate part of the discussion. The XFL thought about being in hubs last year, okay? They thought about being in the Arlington hub and doing the same thing as USFL. Clearly, there was backlash to that idea. They backed away from it. And you know why? Big part of it was because of Mike's reporting, because he said that, and everyone said, you can't do that. That's the same thing that the USFL is doing. I thought we were supposed to play in our own markets. That's the whole point of having all of these brands. You can't take away the Battlehawks fan base. You can't take away the DC fan base. You can't take away the Houston fan base. What are you doing? Don't do this. And, that's part of it, So now you have this, I guess you call it backlash. I'm not sure. I think it's just general mass confusion about what's going on. But at some point, it's going to come to a head, and maybe some of the execs or some of the people in the higher ups of these organizations are going to realize, oh, maybe we shouldn't, this is the wrong Jenga piece to pull out, otherwise the tower might fall. Like, we can't do this. And that's part of reporting. That's part of getting information out there. That's part of getting people informed and getting them in the know about what is happening. So no, Mike Mitchell did nothing wrong, and he's doing his job. And again, maybe that doesn't come to fruition. Maybe they change course and they say, never mind, we're only going to drop 2 teams, or we're just going to figure this out along the way and we'll get back to this later. We'll come back to the table. So, but again, yes, the initial reaction, it should be negative because it's just taking away. It just feels like more subtraction than it does addition, even though it's supposed to be a merger, which is kind of the wrong feeling to have. It's not supposed to be maybe it is supposed to be addition by subtraction, but it certainly doesn't feel that way.
It's like that old show, was it Sister Wives with the Mormon guy and the wives? It's like love should be multiplied, not divided. but I will say this, and just to make it as a serious just thing here, because we've talked about this a lot, and I have nothing but love to the people of the XFL and a lot of the people that run and do. And I was so glad that Corey shared that today, because I do mean that. How do you get rid of you have these people that are working every day, and then it's whoop, we're not doing that. All respect for everybody. Everyone knows I only do this. I certainly don't do this for the fame or the money. It's certainly doing this for the love of all this. But when you have, Danny and The Rock, having just gone through the DC and the Black Adam, and knowing how, for lack of a better word, toxic kind of the fan base can be if you're messing with things that they well, that's not the canon, or that he didn't have that in that comic book, and his socks were yellow and why, all that kind of stuff. I always go back to the initial XFL logo, and we're doing the rebrand, and the website's going down, and we've been tinkering here in the lab, and this is the first thing we're going to show you guys, because we took over, we did that Black Friday hap, this is the first thing we're going to do. And they come out with it, and nobody liked it at all. And you're this is, you are in spring football, man. This is community. And I say the same thing with the CFL. It kills me, a league that is so community driven. I've never had an interaction with a single account on Twitter ever in 3 years of hey, really appreciate, I don't what liking it, hey, watching the CFL game. XFL does that. They be a part of this community, and it's the same kind of with this as well. We went up to our ivory tower, at Fox Sports, or if you did it at Redbird, we kind of went up and we concocted this plan. And here you go. We came up, and you're I get that you can't run a business by committee, but I've always felt spring football is a different. It's just way. Does that make sense? You can't run it by committee, but I just feel you have such this diehard fan base that has gone through so many different twists and turns and had the rug pulled out from them 1,800 times. It's really hard to buy in, and here we, I get these people here we go again. In the beginning of this podcast, I have CJ from San Antonio, or GTA San Andreas, here we go again. I don't know if you've ever played that video game. It just feels all right, strap back into the roller coaster.
And I think that disconnect is part of it that seems to upset a lot of people, and I get it, because it is like a community. It's a very niche thing. I've never thought that it's bigger than it actually is. I wish it was bigger. I think all of our efforts are in trying to get it out there, because we want it to succeed. We want it to be a great thing for players, coaches, people involved in the league, because it's fun. It's something that's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be engaging, and it's supposed to be able to continue the lives and dreams of people who otherwise don't think they have any left in the space. And for them, for the people who are making the decisions, sometimes it just feels like it's completely disconnected from that idea. And I know CFL people would say something similar to their league in some ways. It feels like there's a lot of disconnect from what's going on in the league office versus what's actually going on amongst the fans and the teams. And so I think that's why this is also frustrating. We don't want this to go wrong, because it can go very wrong if things are not handled properly. If egos get involved, or if the wrong pin is pulled and it blows up in their face. If we lose all of this, if all of these teams go away, that's devastating. It's huge. And I'd hate to be doom and gloom, but I don't mean to be like that. I don't want to be so morbid on this show. It's just, we haven't even gotten the official announcement yet. But I just worry about what's the plan going here, and is it going to be executed properly going forward? And, I have to have my doubts so far, just because it's new. And while part of it is exciting, I'm also very anxious to see if what's going to happen and what's going to transpire from it.
Yeah. We'll wind this down here. I think this will be good. I will say, like, if all this goes away, I'll feel really bad for the players and the staff. I think my mental sanity would probably be better off. But certainly, a lot of these fans and the people that listen to the shows, and I appreciate everyone. We've added even just subscribers on the channel here since we've been recording here, which is just, really incredible. And I really appreciate all that support. But, the staff and the players, that's who I care about. And I know that is who you and, Evan and Anthony and Mike and everyone, like, that's who we, that's why you do this. And it's to give these players opportunities, and whether they're going to go into the, go into the NFL. I had my interview that'll be on here later on this episode with Cam Phillips, and talking with him about, he was someone cut, bounced around, went to the XFL, and now he's a Grey Cup champion, and he's on the Toronto Argonauts for, it'll be his third season now. Like, they're probably going to win the Grey Cup again, or at least make, having a historic run of this. Like, here's someone that, it wasn't just because of the XFL. I mean, that Cam Phillips worked his ass off and, played, but like, that was part of his journey. And so even if it's not the NFL for everybody, which it certainly can't be, I mean, it's just, you can never be, but like, to see that as a stepping stone for a lot of these guys, I think is cool. And obviously that's why we do that. So anything else from you, Andy? I appreciate it late here. At least we're West Coast. It's not like, sometimes I feel bad. I got like Mike on till like 11 o'clock and I'm like, oh God, but anything else from you? I appreciate you working late tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for having me on. I was chomping at the bit to say something. I was really, really excited about this, but again, I appreciate you in putting out this platform and giving everybody a platform to talk. I mean, you've been doing double duty. I mean, you did a CFL and XFL back to back. That's almost as good as your draft marathon that you had months ago.
Nothing will top the 8-hour draft. Nothing will top the 8-hour draft.
That's a true marathon. So appreciate you and all the hard work you put in.
Thanks, everyone. Like I said, check that. We got CFL coming up. Derek Taylor, if you're interested in the CFL stuff. And then even if you're not, CFL, Cam Phillips and his journey is part of the XFL as well. Really excited to see him. So, we'll check back in after the break here. Well, this guest was going to bail me out last week when Jeff Hamilton, we talked about that on the podcast, had a delay, got him on here, but we have Derek Taylor. Very excited. Weird weekend with the Blue Bombers. I want to get your thoughts on that and everything else, but voice of the Blue Bombers, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I didn't rear end any other drivers. Is that what the Hammers problem was? I don't know. Hamilton's such a good dude. I hope everything's okay. I hope I see him back in practice next week.
Yeah, no, this is good. So, first off, we'll talk Bombers and it's the bye week, and I want to kind of get your thoughts where we stand here, week 16. But really weird game last week. I was filming actually an old folks like event. I was out filming. I do a lot of event filming, and I'm like tracking the score during the first quarter. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? So I ended up pulling the game out, putting it on my camera so I could walk around and watch it. I didn't expect the Bombers to lose that game, if that makes sense. Like, what do you attribute that to?
I wish I could give you a real solution for it, because all week long we talked about last year's game at this time of the year against Hamilton. It was, hey, you guys had just won a big game and then you went to Hamilton and got whacked. What was the deal with that? And they said, wasn't that complacency. It wasn't that we took them easy. It wasn't that we were looking ahead to the bye week. So they were aware of all these things. And then the exact same game happens, a year minus a day later, and they go into Hamilton with the bye week looming, coming off a big win, and they get whacked and 3 turnovers on offense. And the defense looked vulnerable in ways we haven't seen in a little bit. And you go, how did the same thing happen again? How is it that you've lost going into the bye week 4 of the last 5 times you've had the bye, when over that span you've only lost 7 games? I honestly, I've just come to start thinking, are they as human as kind of, we are? Those of us with Monday to Friday jobs where you go, it's a long weekend coming up. Maybe I don't take Friday as seriously as I do on a regular Friday. I don't know, but I'm starting to think that maybe football players are human beings after all, which is kind of a dumb, slightly sarcastic revelation to come to, but maybe they have some of the things that folks like us in office jobs have too. There's got to be, at this point, I'm like, there's probably something in there.
Because it does seem, and we'll talk, in terms of like the Lions and stuff and other teams, to me, I feel like the Lions are a little undisciplined and it feels like I don't know if that's a locker room thing or whatever. Like, yeah, Winnipeg, O'Shea's got them and we're marching forward. But you're right. That was like the game last year where Dane Evans went off, right? And wasn't that like the game of the year last year for him? And it was that Winnipeg game against Hamilton, right?
Yeah, that's probably the best game Dane Evans will play in his life, right? It's the best game a lot of quarterbacks would ever play in their life. 5 touchdowns and no picks and just raining fire on a team that's on its way to a 15-3 record. That is a game that I feel like Dane, at the very least, Dane's family will remember forever. Remember how unbelievable our kid was that night? Like it was remarkable.
So in terms of, I don't know, is this cause for concern? I mean, obviously, you're with the team and everything, but like they of the time that we've lived in the CFL here, it feels like they're a little bit, like you said, more human right now. Like, is this cause for concern?
It might be. Here's the thing. The Bombers have this going for them that no other team does. They are incredibly healthy. Like incredibly healthy. Before this Hamilton game, the Banjo Bowl against Saskatchewan, if you looked at the 24 guys they started, those are probably the 24 guys they would have wanted started coming out of training camp, right? Nobody among their starters on the injured list, which who does that happen to? Other teams are getting decimated by injury. The other teams are on their 4th quarterback. Hamilton was on its 3rd quarterback, didn't have Dylan Wynn, didn't have its all-star defensive back Tunde Adeleke. There were a ton of guys Hamilton did not have access to, but the Bombers do. You go, oh, okay, well, that's really good. So, however, for this Hamilton game, they lost Jackson Jeffcoat, right? A guy, Coach O'Shea kind of says, was born to pass rush. And you really saw the impacts of it. I do the games with Doug Brown, who's a Hall of Fame defensive tackle. So whenever he starts talking about defensive line, anything defense and anything football, obviously, but when he gets down to defensive line, my ears really perk up. And he goes, oh, they're really taking advantage of Celestin Haba, the rookie who was in for Jeffcoat on this one, and they would, crash him to make sure that Powell could get to the edge, and it seemed like Powell could get to that edge on the rollout whenever he wanted. And I went, oh, okay, well, that's something that Jeffcoat would change, right? And we've seen it in Bomber games this season. If Jeffcoat's not there, the back end is under more stress, and the back end has some cracks in it. Man, I hope that the reason they left Jeffcoat out, they said it was just kind of give him an extra week's rest, and not that he's going to be injured long term. You hope that's absolutely the case because, they've lost 4 games already this year. They lost 3 all of last year, and you thought they might lose a couple more because of wacky bounces and stuff. But Jackson Jeffcoat is incredibly important going down the stretch in this one for this team because not that it doesn't work without him, but, man, it certainly does work with him.
In terms of the Hamilton side of it, they're, quietly here, and I know it's the East, but, Alouettes are kind of, it feels like plummeting a little bit, Hamilton a little bit on the upswing. Did they do a lot well, or is it more just kind of Winnipeg gave it away?
I really think they did. Yeah, they did a lot well. I mean, offensively, we talked about getting Powell out of the pocket, and it was the first time I'd seen him, in person in extended action. I'm like, whoa. Okay, this guy's very calm. Oh, it's breaking down. Okay, well, now he's sliding up into the pocket or he's on a roll. I was super impressed with Powell. His interception, yeah, I get why he threw that. It's in the end zone. It takes away a score, but okay, I get that one. The fumble, you get smashed by a large human. Okay, that stuff's going to happen. I came away super impressed with Powell. They didn't have much in the run game with Butler in that one, yet they were still able to just put up 29 points. Their defense, I still can't get over this, and it's a play that I don't see every defensive end do, but that when I saw it in this game, I went, this I don't know if it's a special play, but it's on the road towards special where Malik Carney's lined up at left defensive end. He does a zone drop to replace the linebacker who's going to pass rush, and then he runs all the way over to the right side of the field to step in a lane where Zach Collaros is throwing the football. I forget if he's throwing a stick route or what it was. I'm like, how does Malik Carney I was just taken aback during the broadcast, and I'm not getting any less. It's not any less incredible to me as you and I are talking here. And wow, that's a real play. And then there's a couple of Zach Collaros had one where should you throw that ball? And we had a few plays this season where he went, should Zach have thrown that ball to Kenny Lawler in double coverage in previous examples? And you go, yeah, well, he has a ton of confidence in the best receiving core in the league, so yeah, maybe maybe he should. Maybe he's taking some shots and hoping they come right. And sometimes if they don't come right, they're going to go bad. So that was kind of my read. And then, I mean, basically the kicking game, which has been rock solid with Sergio Castillo this season, gives up 6 points. Missed a field goal, missed a convert, which went back for a 2-point defensive convert. And you go, well, there's the 6 points between 29 and 23 that, score-wise made the difference, but we're a part of the story of that game.
Yeah, and it really surprising. I mean, Sergio's been on, I think, back when he was with Edmonton and obviously going around. But yeah, I saw Hodge had a bunch of tweets out, the Mark Leggio of it all kind of looms large.
Well, someone phoned the coaches show on Monday and said that Mark Leggio is better than Sergio Castillo. And Coach O'Shea wasn't in studio, but we both kind of went, it's not, I mean, for the game, sure, but it's not overall the case. Castillo, I think, in my adjusted rankings was 4th in the league, and Leggio was 10th with a bullet. Like, it's Leggio hit all his kicks, Castillo didn't, but if you're doing it over a season, I think Bomber fans and Bomber coaches are more secure in Sergio Castillo, despite the one head-to-head matchup that goes awry.
Wanting to focus a lot here on week 16, but looking forward with Winnipeg coming off the bye, Toronto's kind of in this weird spot where they don't necessarily have a lot to play for, moving down the line, kind of clinching, and they're clinched number 1 with a bullet right in the East.
6 weeks to go. With 6 weeks to go, they have the home playoff game and they know it. So I'm interested to see. We've had teams clinch with a couple weeks to go and see how they handle their roster, but 6 weeks to go, well, we have the East final at home. We want to be 100% healthy. We've had guys injured. I'm really interested to see how Ryan Dinwiddie and company approach it.
Yeah, because on paper, I'm looking, I'm like, oh, this is, Toronto at Winnipeg. Like, this is a huge matchup, but then you don't necessarily know what that roster is going to look like.
Yeah, and I mean, Toronto has the advantage of what do you want to show when the next time you two would play would be in the Grey Cup. Hey, we can show them everything, or we can just kind of go, we're going to keep the powder dry for the playoffs in case we happen to meet you guys in the playoffs. Winnipeg's no guarantee to be there, right? Because BC is for real. But yeah, I that's one of the angles of what do we give them? What do we not give them? Who do we show? Who do we not show? I will not be able to diagnose. A smarter football man will have to diagnose. Ooh, Toronto did this but hadn't done this before. Interesting. If they bust out anything new, I'd be shocked, because why not just keep that quiet until November?
Yeah, there was a weird in the XFL last year. It was like the week 10 game or whatever was also the first playoff game, and so like the week 10 game was atrocious because neither team did anything. And then then the playoff game obviously ended up having huge ramifications. I want to get your thoughts here. BC going into Edmonton, and we talked about this. Obviously, BC getting the why they would have to have a comeback from behind win against Ottawa. But if my trust level in Winnipeg was at 10, I'm like a negative 0.5 with BC. Like, I wouldn't want them to watch my children or watch my house or take care. Like, I just don't.
Wow.
I mean, I can see
why
them,
is that? Why BC? Why do you doubt them so much?
Because I just think that they're built on the hype this year. I think they've really bought into everything. I think that they had a couple big wins early in the season, and I don't think they show up ready to go. I mean, it just feels like that was the away thing. Okay, we always win at home, and then what was it? Hamilton came in and beat them at home, was it? Then Ottawa. I'm sitting there watching the game last week, and I'm like, how are you losing to Dustin Crum here? Like, you're supposedly this elite defense, and I'm frustrated. But I see them going into Edmonton. I mean, I would put money on Edmonton here. I mean, I see that them playing with a lot of kind of momentum right now with Trey Ford. What do you make of that?
BC needing a missed field goal return for a touchdown to get back in that game is remarkable, right? Because 50-yard field goals on misses are returned for a touchdown literally 2% of the time. Like, that is as thin a margin as it could possibly be. And to need that against the team with the worst record in the league, yeah. And Vernon threw 3 picks in that game, right? Both the quarterbacks of the top teams in the West threw 3 picks on week 15. Edmonton is just entirely different, right? The Bombers saw them in the first start for Trey Ford, so nothing was kind of, it wasn't gamed out, right? It hasn't progressed as far as it has now. Edmonton's just a different deal. And if they could find a way to catch Saskatchewan, that's a long, 2 wins is a lot to make up. they'd be really intriguing in the playoffs. Pretend that Steven Dunbar is back off the 6-game injured list, alongside Gino Lewis, who's now healthy, Manny Arsenault underneath. Gavin Cobb can do some stuff down the field speed-wise. Kevin Brown is back to Kevin Brown of 2022, right? And the defense with Chris Jones, they're settling in on personnel, be that because of injuries, this is who they've got, or these are the guys that they want. Chris Jones on defense can make some stuff happen. You go, I don't know that I really want. I don't want to have to get through Edmonton to get to a West final on the road. So yeah, I really think I'm part of me is still stuck on BC in week number 3 when they came to Winnipeg and thrashed the Bombers. Part of that is still stuck in my mind, even so that I forget that the Bombers then re-thrashed the Dane Evans at the time led BC Lions by putting up 50. So BC, that offense that offense can be real good. This week, still no Dominic Rhymes. But at some point, they ever figured out how to run the ball in addition to all the other stuff they do, they could really have some things going. But yeah, they just got away. I didn't get to see the game against Ottawa, but watching it on my phone going, really? This is to Ottawa? A couple weeks, like you said, after Hamilton? Really? So they are a puzzler. And so I'm with you. At the right price, I'd be on Edmonton for sure.
And we talked about this in our recap, and I know that they were, when you're behind and you're, okay, we got to pass the ball, whatever. I mean, Mizell had 13 yards rushing. It's insane to me that, and that was the problem is that, before, okay, because like 2-3 years ago, and then we get Butler and we build him up, and then obviously you kind of let him go. But I don't know. It feels like, I don't know. It feels like the defense just lets too many big plays go, in my opinion. And then you get Vernon freaking out, or if it's Dane when he was down, okay, I got to throw for 5,000 yards here. And it just doesn't feel like Winnipeg, like you were saying, when Edmonton goes in and, it was 22-0, whatever, 22-3 at half, like Winnipeg can build back and not panic and do that. It just doesn't feel like BC is built the same way to play patient football.
I could buy that. Like Winnipeg, there's zero panic in Winnipeg. Like none whatsoever. They needed a touchdown to get back within 6 of Hamilton. They went beep, boop, boop. Oh, you're denying everything up top? Beep, boop, 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 boop. And they went super fast, getting snaps off at 18 with the clock live. You go, okay, this team is conditioned. They couldn't make the one that they needed. But yeah, I wouldn't feel the same confidence in BC. And yeah, I just had to pull up Mizell's rushing game log for the season. And it's not... I'm not the biggest proponent of the run game, but we've seen it with the Bombers this season that if the pass game isn't going, they can rely on Brady Oliveira to absolutely crush dudes' souls, right? So, and that's incredibly valuable to have both those ways to attack it. You win throwing the ball in the CFL, but if you have to win running the ball, it's Winnipeg, Toronto, and then kind of everybody else.
My thing is just if you have someone like Vernon and he's having an off, or he throws the pick and then you just see it, he just gets in his head there, and it just would feel nice to have another arm here where we can move the ball down the field, another means to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, if I don't know where Dominic Rhymes is at, but that guy's the leader of that receiving core, right? And if you had Rhymes, Hatcher, Hollins, if McInnes is your Canadian, you throw a fourth one American. Oh boy. Okay, well, this is back to being BC, one of the top 3 receiving cores in the entire CFL, which would give Vernon more options. You can't underestimate how big a deal Dominic Rhymes' injury is, because that guy is, I mean, not only the contested catches, but the thing we'll note is, man, that guy makes contested catches like few others do in this league.
Saskatchewan here. I mean, I know we talked to Ottawa and they're kind of a dumpster fire, but Saskatchewan is, they're alive in the West here. What do you make of them? And I don't know. It feels like people. 1 week we're high on Delgado, the next week it feels kind of like a roller coaster. I don't really know how to feel about it.
He had a real good in the Labor Day game, as we call it, the Banjo Bowl warm-up game. He had a real good performance in that one. In certain areas, right? He seemed very composed in the pocket. His deep ball was off by enormous margins, 10 yards here, 5 yards there. But he was composed. He hammered those out routes, intermediate and deep outs. Went, oh, okay, here's something. Oh, under pressure. Oh, okay, this is good too. And then he had nothing in the Banjo Bowl in the big game. So that was that gives me pause. I mean, you look at a completion percentage for the season of under 61 in a league that's, I'm just going to check to make sure. 66% this year, so it's down a bit. You have to complete more passes than that. You have to be more accurate than that. So that would be my primary concern. That to me, Saskatchewan's season will end up being, does Trevor Harris come back from injury? Because I didn't believe Mason Fide. I don't particularly believe Dola Gala, though he was really good in the Banjo Bowl warm-up game. I don't know. And I don't know what you do with that. And then again, injuries. Like we talked about how Winnipeg has none. Sask this week doesn't have Jamal Morrow, doesn't have Anthony Lanier. Like, just start naming guys, and they're probably on the injured list because, fortune smiles on some teams, and it's not currently on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It's a pretty rough spell right now.
What was that like being at IG Field, having Winnipeg go up 51-6 in Saskatchewan? Because I was filming another event. I listened to the entire Labor Day game and going to overtime and the headbutt, kind of all that stuff, crazy. What was it like bouncing back there that next week?
So in what was it, week 7, when the Bombers just absolutely mauled the BC Lions, I kept saying the score is 50, right? I just put a little emphasis on and 50. And for the whole game, when it got to 42 by halftime, Doug Brown, my partner, was like, well, what are you going to do at 60 now? Because, they're getting towards 60. How are you going to say 60? And that's the kind of things you got to think about in 30 minutes of football that really didn't mean anything, right? You had time to contemplate a lot of stuff. It was unbelievable. Like 6 drives in the first half, all 6 ended touchdowns. Huge plays on them. Everybody's getting a piece of this. The big bomb to Kenny Lawler at halftime when they're already up 35-6, I think it was at that time. Oh man, this is as good as it gets, and everybody's just. The second half was just almost anticlimactic, right? Because the Bombers just wanted to, let's keep the clock going. Boop, field goal. Boop, field goal. Oh, fourth quarter. Boop, field goal. It was almost 30 minutes of clock time to celebrate. Man, what an incredible first half. And look at this offense. This is what we all kind of knew this offense would be. So it was loud. And then it's just better for Bomber fans when they do it to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It makes everything better. And this year there was the entire team was throwing up and taking IVs, right? Last year was an awful experience for the Riders. Whatever was it norovirus or food poisoning that was going through there? They were not who they could have been. This time they were there. They could have been, and there were no excuses for Bomber fans. Like, nope, we're 50 points better in this one. Like, it was. I highly recommend it to every broadcaster to call a blowout in favor of his own team.
Yeah, my fan base is like Seahawks, Commanders, Mariners. I don't get a lot of blowout. I think Mariners this year had I think they won 14-2 at one point. That was exciting. I've never lived through that, being up 50 points on another franchise.
What was the Super Bowl against Peyton? Was it 41 to something?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did have. Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was a while ago, right? But yeah, it's to do it to your biggest rival is. Yeah, the text line was pretty happy with how that was going.
Yeah, that was probably the last. I was working at the Fox station here, and we were filming at a casino, and they were showing the game on the big screen because they didn't want to send me the. I didn't get sent to the Super Bowl like everyone else did. And so yeah, I was filming the auditorium of people watching that game. They were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's those are the days, and I mean that's the Bombers at their peak, right? Like the defense allowed absolutely nothing, 6 points and a third field goal attempt, and 6 touchdowns on 6 drives, and scored on the first 9 drives of the game. But yeah, this is the Lawler, Schoen, Dembski, Wolotarski, Bailey, Oliveira, Kolaris and company offense. This is what it could be, and we kind of said out of that game, if the Bombers play their 100% game with their 100% roster, they're going to beat anybody in the league. It'll be a matter of how close to 100% are they in the playoffs, and how close are they to 100% and their opponents are to 100% in the Grey Cup game, because, man, there is no shortage of talent here.
Before we get out of here, I'll let you go soon, I promise. Welfare check Calgary, how are we feeling here?
Injuries are everybody's deal, right? They were the one team they haven't lost Mayer for any games to injury, but they've lost so many other spots around him that you go, wow, James Vaughters was a force early on, and then I believe he did his Achilles, and he's definitely out for the year. And you go, okay, well that guy was a dominant pass rusher and gone for the year, and just it keeps adding up, injury here, there. That I kind of looked at them as a team and went, they lost talent in the offseason for reasons they don't normally lose talent in the offseason. I don't have any concerns if I'm an opposing team with this receiving core. Sure, they might be able to run the ball. Well, Kadeem Carey had a fantastic year with that offensive line last year, but they're not overwhelmed with talent, was kind of my thought of them this year. And I didn't know that. I kind of wondered. You kind of keep quiet if you think Calgary isn't going to win 10 games, because they'd won 10 games in every 18-game season from 2008 to last year. So you kind of keep that hushed up so you don't look dumb upon reflection. But I kind of wondered, are they the fourth best team in the league in the West this year? And it's unfortunately for them played out that way. Injuries did not break in their favor as they have for some other teams. And yeah, is Jake Mayer redeeming himself to keep his job for next year? I guess we'll see, but he had a real rough stretch. I think it was 4 straight games of, like 150 or under, or 175 or under. It's been real rough for Calgary this year. And yeah, some of it is on them and some of it is just on the injury gods biting them in the butt.
Yeah, I just don't know, whatever happens this year, do we roll out Mayer again next year? Like, here we go. I mean, they were just, he looked so promising, and, there was a lot of buildup and the kind of the passing of the baton. I just don't know if you roll that out next year, if Calgary fans are excited about it.
Guaranteed money, though, right? That's going to be the thing. The NFL, any NFL show you watch, you hear conversations, they'll involve dead cap money. Oh, they traded Matt Ryan, and it's a $42 million dead cap hit. We're approaching that in the CFL, right? Taylor Cornelius and Jake Mayer. Like, Taylor Cornelius is now the third-string quarterback in Edmonton. He's guaranteed money for 2024, according to reports. Mayer's guaranteed money. I think we've maybe seen some from Mayer, but there's, again, this is something that people inside Calgary would know way better. But there's just something with the offense they let Mayer run, or and how it's not servicing him to his full potential, or Mayer's talent doesn't allow them to have the offense at its full potential, because it's just underneath stuff, and it can be real hard to watch, and it doesn't move the ball consistently and effectively. And sure, he'll put up 450 in a game, but you go, okay, but do this every week. So there's Calgary kind of needed this one and then just kind of flush this. We'll have our bad luck season, we'll have our bad injury season, and hopefully we're back next year. But if you continually let talent walk out the door, you're going to reap what you sow in that case.
Well, Derek, I appreciate it. Bye week coming on, doing some work here. It means a lot, and good to catch up with you. And I'm sure one way or another at Winnipeg in Hamilton, and we'll be around. So I hope to see you there.
Man, these next 2 weeks are the best 2 weeks of my. Like, I've been waiting for these 2 weeks for 6 weeks now. I've been talking about it. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when they play Toronto and BC back to back? Like, this is going to be. It's going to tell us, okay, well, best in the East, best in the West, and then the battle for first place in the West. Like, a playoff spot's on the line 1, 2, 3 weeks from now in Vancouver. The first place. You want to finish first, because more than 60% of the teams that finish first go to the Grey Cup. I'm so excited for the 2 weeks that are ahead. Oh, man.
I'm looking here. I'm like, what am I doing on Friday the 6th? I might have to talk to the wife about that. Maybe we'll come up the corridor there.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let me know. We need guests in the 2-hour pregame show live on 680 CJOB.
Just me screaming about the Donut Boys. Derek, I really appreciate it. Like I said, coming on the bunch, it means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, here we are talking with a Grey Cup champion here with the Toronto Argonauts, back again this year. Cam Phillips, how are you doing, sir?
I'm all right, man. Thank you for having me, man.
I know people are excited. Like I said, we cover, XFL, CFL, all this kind of stuff. How's your year going? Argo's kind of killing it right now.
Yeah, man, we're rolling, man. We got a good thing going right now. We were able to, get it done last year and really retain, a big part of that team. So I think we just got the right guys in. We're professional. We're making all the right plays. We're staying together. So, like I said, it's good to be a part of.
What's the vibe right now? Obviously, the team's rolling. What's kind of the locker room vibe? I know you're sitting there right now, kind of after practice and meetings and everything.
Yeah. I mean, believe it or not, I'm not the only one in the locker room, which is the way you should want it. We finished practice, around 1 something, and guys are still here. We have meetings, getting treatment, just working together to just continue to build, that camaraderie, because it is a team thing. We need everyone to do their part. And, it is a real family atmosphere that we have here. And I think that is the biggest thing, when you can kind of play for one another, because you're, sort of don't want to let down your teammate or your brother in this sense, So I think we have a lot of that going on. So guys just being themselves and, just able to be free. And whenever you can be free, you're not really worried about anything. And I think we're really just playing free right now.
I was talking with Mike Mitchell, covers the Argos, telling him you were coming on. I think you were out last week. How are you feeling now, getting back up to speed?
Yeah, man, just dealing with some soft tissue stuff, but it's nothing crazy to worry about. Just seasonal stuff, just the grind of a long season, especially, being in the CFL, the amount of running that the receivers do, so it's nothing crazy. I'll be all right. It was more like a precautionary thing, the last game, but yeah, I'm okay.
In terms of, rest and where the team's at, you guys are in a weird position, kind of locked up everything here, 6 weeks to go in the season. How does that feel? How does the team approach that? What are they thinking?
Really the same way that we've been approaching every week, man, and that's just going 1-0 this week. Just the most important game is the next one. It doesn't matter, because you can't, even at the beginning, like, you can't win 15 games at once. You can't go win a championship the first week, so it's a process. So I think, the coaching staff and even the players, which we've bought in, and that's really the culture now. We come to work, we are who we are, but when it's time to work, it's time to work. And, I think we make the workplace environment fun too. Like, it's fun to come to work. Winning, of course, helps. Nobody, to lose, but that's really it, man. We just come in and we know our job is to win a football game, just win one game, and then you try to stack bricks that way, and then you end up with a house, something nice and stable. But like I said, man, I think we got a really good thing going. And just, it's a good problem to have all this rest. It'd be different if, you need guys and it's like, we kind of need you to rush back or whatever, because we need to win these games. But it's like, no, we're in a great situation, and we just, like I said, just come to work, and then everything else will take care of itself.
I've had on people from the Argos, especially like Mike Hogan was on a couple weeks ago, voice of the team there. And, historically speaking, and a lot of this stuff is before you or I were even a thought in anyone's world, but, the Argos are doing things right now historic. Do you guys care? Do you know? I mean, I know it's one win at a time, 1 week at a time and one win at a time, but it is.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, though. I mean, everybody is, telling you how great you are when, just last year was a different story. And even this year could have been a different story, but that's just, that comes with the pro game, man. Whenever you high or you're doing good, they want to tell you how great you are when you're not, and they want to tear you down. So it's been cool, though, because I had no idea. I think somebody told me, like, we have the best start, like, out of any Argos team in history. I had no idea, but it's like, when you hear stuff like that, it's cool, man. It's like, you want to hear it, but you got to just take it with a grain of salt. It's like, that didn't just happen, like, a lot of work went into that. So I just think, like I said, everybody is on board with what we're doing. and we just got a great atmosphere here, man. And I think we'll keep it going.
Curious, kind of your thoughts on where you're at. Here you're someone, and we followed you back with the XFL and going up to the CFL and kind of working your way onto the roster. Here we were in Regina last year when Toronto won the Grey Cup. We were there covering it,
Okay.
and to feel like the journey you've been on, like where does it feel like now, sitting, where you're at, and just how do you feel?
Yeah, man, I'm just really appreciative of the career that I've had. I've seen different types of football, met a lot of great people in different places, learned a lot over the game, and learned a lot about myself as well. I think last year, with the XFL being cut short, last season was my first season playing like a full football season since that. So for me, like getting through that and going through that, I was really excited, man. I was on a high. Even after the Grey Cup, I was on a high for maybe a couple months. It was just a great feeling, man, to be back a part of something and actually, contributing. Football is a team sport. One person can't win it all. So for me, I just try to be the best that I can be, make the different types of plays that present themselves for me, whether it be a block for somebody else, a first down catch, or even a route that's to get somebody else open. I understand, I guess, this point in my career and being one of the leaders, on the team of the receiver group, like how important everyone's job is, so I guess it is more team success. Like I really just want to win. Like winning is fun. When you win, coming to work is fun. When you lose, it's stressful. So, I just try to be the best example that I can be. I think that's where I am right now. Of course, there are things that I would still love to do. I still think, the physical shape, I'm fine. I'm great, and it's just controlling what I can control, really. I think it's a great situation here, and I feel really wanted, because this was really the first team for Hamilton, but that didn't work.
I gotcha.
That didn't work.
Well, you Argos hate the Ticats anyway, so it works out.
It's so crazy, man. I don't know what it is. It's just something, man. It's just something. But I feel like, I'm in the right place for me, and I feel like just where I am, like in my career, I'm in a really good position. Like I just try to take it day to day and control what I can control. Like I can't throw the ball to myself. I can't call the plays. So it's like, just control what you can control, man. And that's really what I try to let everybody else know around me. Like, because it can get frustrating, going through a long season, maybe things not going how you want it to go. But I think if you can have that mindset, because it applies to more than just football, it's like a life. It's life, and just taking that I hate to say day to day, but that's really like, we harp on that. Like that language is being spoken every day here, man. Just want to know, man, it's a new day. It's a new play. Like you make this play work as good as it can, then the next play, it's a new play, so that's really how I take it.
How much do you attribute where you're at now to, your time in the XFL and just kind of alternative leagues in general, kind of having that opportunity for guys?
Yeah, I think it's great for guys, that may not have gotten a shot, or the chance that they wanted or thought they were going to get. It's a great way to just, I wish more guys understood that it is professional though, like you're a pro, so you should handle yourself professionally, work on your craft still the same as if you were getting ready to get drafted. But I've been able to, I think, gonna say the mental fortitude of it all, just going back and forth and kind of that COVID thing, man. It was so much uncertainty, but it was just like, I'm just grateful that when I got the chance to play again, I really appreciated it. So I think that helped me, just the different experience. And it's funny because I'm only 27, bro, but in the locker room and in football terms, I'm like an old guy. So it's weird. But yeah, man, I'm one of the oldest receivers we have. And then the experience that I have, and I guess, my level of play, I can be counted on. I'm being considered as, an older, more veteran guy. And this is my second year playing CFL football. It's like, you're a veteran, though. So, I appreciate all that it comes with, though, man.
Last question for me. What would be, as someone that has just had to, fight your whole way up, right, and even get into the CFL, get into the Argos, working your way up, what would be your advice to guys? Because we have a lot of players in all these leagues, and, here you're someone that never gave up, worked through, hoisting the Grey Cup last year. Like, what would be your advice to those other players?
Yeah, man. I think when you go through, every high school, college player thinks they're going to go to the NFL and thinks they're going to play 10, 15 years, sign 2 or 3 contracts, man. But it's like, you don't. And even though the numbers suggest that, when you get there, you realize the turnaround. It's like every year it's new people on new teams, just new obstacles you got to overcome. But just when it doesn't go as planned, like, you can question yourself, even though you could, in my case, have the most yards and catches in Virginia Tech college history. So it's like, you can play ball, man. You're like, how to ball. But it's like, when things don't happen that way, you can just start to doubt and start to look externally when you should be looking internally more. Just control what you can control, man. That's how you show up. That's the effort you put forth. And really, that's it. And once you're okay with that, then it's like, everything else can just happen, because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to make it happen. People say you got to be at the right place at the right time, or it's who you know, not what you know. It's like, you can't control none of that, bro. So the more you think about the things you can't control, the more upset you're going to be. It's like, oh, I'm better than him, or I should be on this team playing it. It's like, none of that matters, because at the end of the day, that's not the situation. So the real situation is what you're in, how you wake up, how you attack work. I need to go to the gym today. I don't feel like it. I'm still, no, go to the gym, handle your business, and that's really all I can. That's the biggest thing I would let guys know.
Well, Cam, I appreciate it. It's been awesome kind of watching your journey. I'm glad we could finally get you on here. I appreciate Chris setting it up. I have a feeling we'll be seeing you in Hamilton. We have our flights booked, so I have a feeling we'll be seeing you there. But good luck with everything. We'll be watching, and keep killing it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man, for the time and the interest, man. Thank you so much. And I hope the podcast and everything continues to go for you, man.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate all of our guests today. Andrew Murray making time after work, watching, I presume, Thursday Night Football here with a side eye, doing everything to bring you guys the latest XFL and USFL merger news. I never thought I would say that. Still kind of getting used to that. And then, of course, Derek Taylor making time on the bye week, and Cam Phillips after practice in the locker room. Always means a lot in the Argonauts for facilitating all of that. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. That should do it for me today. We're going to keep tracking this as news comes out. I have a big CFL guest, one of the TSN members, coming on next week, talking CFL, work on some more CFL player interviews. And then, of course, we'll be covering all of the XFL and USFL news, merger talks here, latest news. Like I said, like and subscribe, doing the shorts, doing the live streams, doing the episodes like this every Friday. So we'll see you guys next time. Have a safe weekend. Enjoy the CFL slate of games, and take care.